Welcome to this online lecture about data analysis and data visualization. The general procedure of data analysis starts with the data source. A data source is, for example, the interview or a questionnaire or pictures you took during observation. Then you gather facts from your observations, from the interviews, from the questionnaire, and you, for example, could write them down on post-its. Here you see, for example, a post-it note in which I wrote down art director, which was mentioned in the interview. It was the interview respondent himself who was the art director, and he told me about that he needs money and that he became cynical. So I wrote all these things down on post-it notes. The next thing I did was to cluster facts, and I did it in a way that I also could understand the relation of the art director and the client, agency, and I gathered all these facts and the relations between the facts on this sheet. I call it a relation diagram. For my research, this is quite interesting. So returning back to this overview, I gathered the facts and put them in a relation diagram. That was my form of clustering, but you can do that also in other ways. I will come back to that later and give you more examples. And then you describe these facts in detail and you start visualizing. For me, it was kind of a thing that I did together, but you can also choose to do them separately, all these steps. There are different goals for data analysis. For example, it is used to identify patterns, to find themes or categories, or to synthesize information. And with identify patterns, it could be, for example, the relation diagram that I showed. It could be how people use a product, how they go about during their workday, or any other pattern that you could find. Also, another is the finding themes or categories. A theme could be related to keywords or things that you defined at forehand, or they could emerge from your data. So if you, for example, have everything put down on post-its, you cluster them together and you can define what these clusters mean, and that could be your theme. You can also synthesize information, and that's about generating ideas, co-creating ideas together with your respondents. So this is about the next step towards a design challenge or design brief. And here you see an example of data analysis of observations done by a student. You see photos that the student took, and she grouped the photos together. Which one is a group is about regulations that are shown on signs, and the other one are the storm drains that she saw during her observations. Here's another example of a student who shows a photo of one of his observations on Bali. And it is not only about showing the picture, but also about making interpretation. What does it mean, what you see in the picture? This is his observation, and he interpreted as this is a recycling program is not working, as there is a large can in front of the bins where everything is put together. Here is another example of a student analyzing an interview. She put all the quotes underneath each other in a large Excel file, and she then used a coding scheme to identify what these quotes from her interviews meant. A tip could be to find an existing coding scheme which you can apply, but you can also define your own codes. If you conduct a survey or you derive facts, numbers from your interviews, be aware of the numbers. What do they mean? Are they just indications of how many people would say yes or no, or is it a truly significant number? You can find more about this in the discussion done by one of the students in the student tutorials. And I think this is interesting to watch the student tutorials because there's also approaches and ideas how to deal with data in their tutorials. If you put information or numbers from your surveys in graphs and you put them in your paper, not just put them there, but explain them. Give the reader tools to understand your graph, to give your own interpretation to the graph. What do the numbers mean? However, try not to add too much of an opinion, so try to stay objective in this interpretation. So now moving on towards the next subject is how to visualize data. There are a couple of ways to do that. The most common ones are in graphs and in diagrams. You already seen a bar chart or a pie chart. Bar chart is another one. And these are very common ones used to show survey data. But you can also use more creative ways to visualize data. For example, create an infographic. You've learned how to create an infographic last year in Viscom. And this is a nice way to show multiple numbers and multiple information into one picture. So yeah, you could use an infographic to show your data. Another way is to create personas, especially if you can group different respondents together. You can create personas from that. A persona is not a literal person from your respondent group, but it's a representative. Then you can create storyboards. Here you see an example of a storyboard. This one is used to describe how a user is using a fictive product or a design product. But you can also use the storyboard to show a journey or a timeline, or how people use currently their products. So it's yeah, you can use it in multiple ways. And then you can also use pictures from observations to show information or visualize data, like I showed you an example before. So to summarize, visualizing data, you can do that by diagrams and charts or infographics, personas, storyboards and pictures. So yeah, to show you where it all fits in, it's all part of the research process. You start with your research questions, so don't forget about that when you start analyzing your data and visualizing it. It's all about your research question. Then you collect your data and you analyze your data. So we discussed that in this video, the analysis of your data. And of course, you need to be able to present your data and your interpretations. And it is by means of data visualization. So I hope this video helps you to analyze and visualize your data. And also, like I said, look at the examples of the students' tutorials, which are very informative as well. You can find the link. And of course, you know where to find me if you have further questions.